Well, thank you for attending our webinar today. We're really looking forward to supporting you to get ready on ScribePro team ahead of the friendlies window and, of course, the World Cup. The team that's here presenting today is myself, Adam, and Julia, and we're the team that will support you before, during, and after the World Cup. So anything that you need at all from us, just get in touch with the FIFA wc@scribepro.co email address, and one of us will get back to you. Today, Adam will take you through really getting set up on ScribePro team ahead of recording your records and things, and we'll be here to support with that too. The webinar today is being recorded, and after the webinar we will caption and translate that for you, so it'll be available to view in the language of your choice, which may be a great opportunity to share with your clinical teams, any other clinicians that will be joining you at the World Cup. You'll be able to share the link with them too. If you have any questions while we go through the webinar, there will be time at the end to cover those questions off, or you can use the chat function to speak to us there whilst Adam's presenting. Okay, Adam, happy to hand over to you to kick things off.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. So I'm Adam. I'm the clinical lead at ScribePro, and I'm a sports physiotherapist myself, and I've worked at the Scotland men's and women's national teams over the years. So what I want to do today is talk a little about how we're going to help you get set up to use the ScribePro system ahead of the camps and the World Cup, and also talk through a few clinical use cases that you might frequently interact with and utilise the ScribePro team medical management system. So we'll take you through a little bit to start with, just on how we're going to get you set up onto the squad and get you ready and confident to use the system ahead of time. So what we see here, what I'm showing you just now, is a populated test squad with kind of fake players and fake data. But what we want to do is get your squad and players ready and uploaded onto the system. So there's a couple of ways in which we can support you with this. One way is that if you reach out to us through the methods that Sarah has communicated, we can send you a Excel spreadsheet where you can, and I'll just bring it up here, the other one we'll bring up here. We'll send you a spreadsheet that looks a little bit like this, and you can complete it with your player details once you have them. You can just fill in names and playing positions and date of birth as a minimum. Any additional information will be uploaded to the squad. But once that's completed, you can send that back to us here, and we will upload the squad for you in person, so that next time you log in, your squad will be there. That's one method in which we can get you ready to use the system. The other way is that it's actually quick and easy to add players as required. So an example as well might be if a player has to join the squad at any period of time, maybe to replace an injured player. It's very quick and easy to, from within the system, add a player. So there's a space for uploading images of the player. As you can see, that is populated in our squad here. We can add a headshot. We simply add names, the sex of the player. We can go in and add a date of birth as required, and then we have additional information that can be completed as well. So additional info, if we want to include good record keeping, we can add in weights and heights. We have to select a position that the player will play in, the foot dominance that they have, arm dominance can be included if required, and then we have other details as well. For international teams, sometimes this is good to include detail of the club team that the player is coming from, so that you have a contact and detail of who needs to be required to be communicated with in the event of injury or illness sustained on camp. We have an ability to record allergies as well for players. So if it's a simple no, that is fine. But if we were to select any allergens that the player has, we can document this here. We can add in any notes that the members of the medical team do need to be aware of. And I'll show you where this will surface. And this is visible for your players. So this is always understood and known for players that do have allergies. Addresses as well, so if we need to keep detail for organising scans, for example, you often need to require adding in a player address. Again, can be completed here. And next of kin detail, should anything happen to the player, and you will need to have a space for understanding the player's next of kin. All this detail, again, can be housed centrally within the player profile. And we have a space for GP if they have another member of their own general practitioner that looks after the player. All this information can be stored within the player profile as you create a player as we go. So ideally, you'll have your squad set up that will look something a little bit like this. So your home screen becomes populated with your players. You'll see here that the players are differentiated by their playing position. They're sectioned between playing position. We can filter that if required. And we can search for a player as well if needed as we go. And we'll start to see players populated through here. Another aspect of the squad to be aware of is that each squad can house 35 players, which should be ample numbers, but there's always a case where players may change out, as we've spoken about already. And if we need to move a player out of a squad, for example, and they're not part of an active squad, when you sign up and get active on ScribePro Team, we will set you up with an archive squad. So an archive squad is a place where we can move players to and from that maintains their medical records, but it does not impact upon your live active squad. So if we were to do this, for example, we have a player transfer section. And if we were to look for our player that we want to move, we simply search for our player. We can click on them here. And depending on the squads that you do have access to, you'll start to see who they're available to transfer into. We would simply hit the archive squad and we would move the player across as required. And the archive team is similar. The only difference is that you cannot add new detail to a player's medical records in the archive squad. But as soon as you do transfer them back into your active squad, they become fully editable and you can add any detail as required. So once you've got your squad there, hopefully into a good place, then we can start to think about adding and completing our clinical team. So what other clinicians need access to the system to add detail, who's going to be performing treatments, other doctors, physiotherapists, athletic trainers, any kind of members of your clinical team that need access to the system. We can organise this through the clinical team section. Now, it's important here to say that we designate one admin user, as we will call it. And this admin user here is denoted here. You can let us know who you would like that to be within the organisation. Now, the admin user, crucially, has the ability to edit the clinical team. So as I am the admin user in this example, only I have the ability to add a clinician. And this is done quickly and easily by adding the name of the clinician you wish to add. You simply add in an email address and the phone number, and the clinician will receive an alert to register on the ScribePro system, and then they will be able to join the clinical team and then begin interacting with the players in the squad from that point there. In addition to adding clinicians, if a clinician is no longer working with a squad or moves on for any reason, similarly, the admin user will be able to see these 3 dots per user and will be able to remove a user from there. So as I say, this is usually best kept for someone who's always going to be actively within the system. It might not always be a medical user. It may be a team manager or admin user that can organise and keep track of clinicians as they come in and out, depending on your situations. Important to note, any user can create players that we went through before. That does not have to be the admin user. But if for any reason you need us to change the admin user, you can get in touch with us here at ScribePro, one of the 3 of us, and we'll be happy to help and assist with that. So that's largely the kind of setup and getting going. But what will happen when your squad is populated with players, or you create players yourself, is you're going to have blank and empty player records. So if we start to think here, if we use an example of Jonathan, this is an example of a squad where a player has been active for a while. They will have an injury history that is naturally built up, but there may be, obviously, with new users to the squad will be blank. We are able to add in previous injury history in one of 2 ways. For each user, if you have a file based upon their injury history, whether that is a PDF, a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet that does have player details of injury history or medical history, cardiac screening, etc., and you have that in a file already, then we have a documents section for each player where we can simply add a document to upload, and we can record this as any of the preset documents. If it was to be something a little bit separate and it might be an injury history, we can simply title that player injury history, and that can all live within a document that anyone can go in and access and interact with to understand injury history as required. The other way, and we'll go through this shortly, is that we can create specific injuries for the players with just high-level information. Our system works with just a few essential items that you need to add, mandatory fields, but we can work through that quickly, and I'll show you that when we do run through the new injury process, but you'll be able to add in quite quickly previous injuries if you do want to add them specifically into the injury section of a player's injury history. So hopefully with a little bit of time and a little bit of work, we can get your squad into a place where you have your active squad for the next camp. You have the detail behind players regarding allergies, etc. As you'll see, this is all detailed when you click in to the player page. You'll see their playing position. You'll see any allergies in this space up here. But now let's assume that we are all set up. We have our clinical team in place. We're ready to work with our players on training days to get ready ahead of upcoming matches. You'll see on the landing page here your squad, and you'll notice that some players have these status alerts. Players that do not, we can assume, are fit and healthy and are fully training. They're fully playing for the squad, so that they don't have any icons. However, we see these players here. We have 2 players who are currently in amber modified training statuses, but they're unable to play. So we could maybe assume that they're returning back from injury, working their way back, but as yet unable to play. And Jamie here is unable to train and play. He's maybe just recently picked up an injury and is working with the medical team to get back fit. So if we have a training day, and at the start of a training day, we want to understand who is available, and perhaps the status has changed overnight. So if we were to work on the example with Jonathan here, we can move into the player profile. And again, we can speak about some of these areas later. But we'll see this active injury. So this injury is not signed off, whereas his previous injuries that he has had, we see here, we can click into and look at if we require to. But again, for this example, we will work that Jonathan has a left-sided hamstring strain that he is just returning to training for. So we can come into here, we can see the OSIX code, we can see the diagnostic information that sits around this injury. We can see the information regarding the context for this injury, how it occurred, all the detail that we need to know regarding specific location. We can see a history of SOAP notes and interactions with the player by our clinical team. And we can see documents that relate to the injury as well. So we can see an MRI report was attached to this injury. We can see the rehab that the player has gone through. We can upload and we can view this as required. But in our example, let's say Jonathan is working back and he's going to be fully training today. So in the morning, what we want to do is we want to update his current statuses. So training, we can simply update here. We update him to fully, and we'll say it for this day. We can add a note if required, and we'll put that into here. And you'll see that his status change moves through. And then for this example, we will say that he is also cleared to play at the weekend as required. We now have a player status being fully playing and fully training. And for good kind of management within the system, what we want to do is we want to sign off this injury and return the player back to baseline. So we can sign off and close this injury. Again, we can add notes if required for any reason, and we can move that across here. And what we'll see is that this hamstring injury case now becomes signed off. And if we move back to our squad, Jonathan now becomes fully available. Now, where this becomes important is that at the start of the training day, we can get our squad into an accurate place here. And this ties into our squad activities. So at the end of a training day, we can record the training exposure and match play exposure, but we'll go through a training day example here. And this becomes relevant as a place training is finished, and we want to record the duration of what each player underwent for the training that day, and we can over time build up our match and training exposure hours that can either be shared that we'll speak about later in the webinar, or also used internally if we want to calculate metrics such as injuries per 1,000 hours. So if we take the example that we have finished training now, you can come into here and create a new squad activity. If it was done at a different time, we can go back and change the date and time. We can say that this was, for example, I'm actually -2 training session. And for the example of the national team, we can select who with. We obviously will select national, and the context will be a training day. So we'll denote that as training. We can select and record specifically the match day relative. So like for this example, we'll again say a match day -2. The training context was sport specific, so football training. Again, we have the ability to decipher this and put this into a little bit more detail as required if any of these options are required. And we'll record this as football training. We then pick out the surface of which we trained on, and then the duration of activity, we can put in the overall training minutes into this section here. So for example, we'll say they trained for 80 minutes today. And then where the status availability comes in is when we select our athletes. So as we come into here, it is all automatically pre-populated to associate the 80 minutes with each player that has full availability or green available to train tag against their injury. So anyone player with blue, as you'll see Jonathan, we made him fully available, now has the 80 minutes associated with him. So that's automatically done for you, just to save time, make things a little bit easier. And then you'll see the players that do still have training statuses included. Then Jamie here, for example, is down as not training. So we can, if we want to add more detail, we can say that he did not participate, and we can say the reason why that was, for just to create more context behind the information that we're recording in the system. So again, maybe for injury. And we may have an example where Neil, who is partially training, perhaps he did part of the session, and we could say that, yep, Neil only managed half of the session. He trained for 40 minutes. And again, this reason was because we were managing the injury for the player. And again, we can upload that here and see that 40 minutes has been associated with Neil. Similarly, with Jamie, we can put in here, he perhaps did the majority of the session, but again was modified. He maybe didn't take part in all of the drills fully, and we can associate that there. And then we can record that, and you'll see that we've got our players selected. We have the ability to upload a document, so you could do that retrospectively if you want to add maybe a session plan from the coaches, or you could also add a PDF report from GPS if that is used, and you can associate that to the record of the activity right here. And then we create that, and the training session has been recorded. You can see high-level statistics of who was fully participated, etc. And then this will live with the player's individual profile as we go. So that's our squad activities action. And again, a very similar flow can be done for match play. But if we continue on our example, we've had a training day. So we've had the squad availability checked in the morning, and that has been updated and is accurate. We've had our training session. So we've then completed the training exposure minutes. That has now been updated within the system, but it's now post-training in the afternoon or the evening, and we know that that is when players get their any new injuries assessed or treated. Some players just go in for maintenance treatments, maybe medications are used, or players have seen doctors for many different reasons, and we want to record some of these interactions. So if we were to again use Jonathan as our guinea pig, we can again add in a new injury very quickly. So what we'll do is we'll start though by talking a little bit about what we spoke about at the start with adding a historic injuries. You'll see that we can set there's very few mandatory fields that are denoted by the asterisk, and you can just quickly, if you want to populate some historic injuries and some rough details, we can just quickly add in any of these sections here that are all mapped out to IOC reporting standards. We might want to record, say, it's a stress fracture in a player's foot, and this was, we could go back in time and say we know that this was from 2021 in May. We can record a historic injury. We can put, it might not be applicable, or it might be overuse. We don't have to record every detail, but we can just set the statuses and then go in and update the playing status to the time in which they recovered, and you can quickly put in a record like that. However, if we do have a new injury and we want to take that example, then we can run through the flow. So perhaps he's picked up, unfortunately, a quadricep injury. So we would be able to run through with the context of the new injury that's happened today. We can change the body map to record it to be the anterior thigh and the quadricep. We then get a very specific lower limb muscle injury. If that is the injuries that are recorded, then we can select the musculature appropriate to the body part. We can specify the site, whether it's proximal, distal, or middle, perhaps a distal injury, the specific injury type that was recorded. And again, this information really helps to get a full picture of the injuries that are being picked up that might want to be looked at a later date to see any kind of trends that we have within injuries within the team. We might say that this was a trauma injury of sudden onset. We have the ability, again, to record detail regarding mechanism. Perhaps with most quadricep injuries, this is a kicking injury from shooting. And again, we can record extra detail as required, as appropriate. And as we go, we have the ability to add in real detail and at the granular level for what happened regarding the injury. This might not have been a contact injury, but if it was, we can record at a deep level exactly what happened. If it was a recurrence, that's good to know. Then if they have had a previous quadricep injury, we can denote this and again specify, was it just an exacerbation of a recent injury? Was it a subsequent new injury, for example, perhaps, and at a completely different site in the quadricep? And we can link back to when that previous injury actually occurred. In this case, maybe the start of the year. And then the context regarding the, what actually happened. So if it was, again, for our example, training today with the national team, we can, again, edit the match day, it was on a -2. How many minutes into training did the injury occur? We might know that that happened halfway through today's session. They were doing the sport-specific training, which was football not inside, it was on grass. And we can really get the detail regarding this new injury. And again, the ability, if it was any kind of foul play regarding then a contact injury, more often the case, we can record this as well. And then finally, we add our statuses. So perhaps he's picked out it's a fairly serious injury. He would then be unavailable to play and unable to train currently. This creates this new injury profile in which we are encouraged to add more about the diagnosis regarding the injury. So if we were to know this, we can straight away add in an OSIX code. So these many OSIX codes are pre-built into the system with a smart search function. So if we continue with the theme of a rectus femoris injury, we can begin typing as we go, and we'll get more and more specific, and we can pick out the specific code that relates to the injury that the player has sustained. In this example, let's say it's a straightforward strain. If we want to be more specific, so perhaps in this example, we've done some MRI imaging and we have some classifications for the injury. We might say it is, if we have a grading scale, we can put in here. We have the ability to add an estimated recovery date as well that we might want to think through. We expect this might be a 4-week injury. We can record that into here. Oh, that's because I put the date wrong at the start. For the historic injury, it'll give you the rough duration there, because how that diagnosis was made as well. So if we want to record that, we can put that into here and we'll start to see this detail is explained. We've got our estimated recovery that is wrong in this case, and we can put this down here. We'll update. Just to make it a little bit more realistic, there we are. And then as we go through there, we have the new injury uploaded. Our clinical team then, whoever is interacting and treating the player, is able to add in their new treatment notes as required through the SOAP note section, can be added, and you can see who's added notes. So if we just quickly were to add in a test note, you'll see whoever added that note, you can see it was added by myself and timestamped to today was the most recent. You can go and see, and again, any documents can be uploaded regarding the injury, whether that's maybe the player went for an X-ray and you got a report, or an MRI, blood tests, etc., can all be recorded for the player. And then we know that maybe again post-training we've had a player not injured, but they've requested some treatment. So it might be a player that's fit that we move into, for example, Joe here, and they have want to add a therapy. We can see any historic therapies that are added, if any are added, none in this case, but we have the ability to select some different modalities that might be used for the treatment. We can select that they were treated for 30 minutes, for example, and this was in relation to the player's knee and calf. You can add in a subjective pain score if required, and any notes that do sit alongside this. Requested treatment following gym work, for example, and we can save this here, and it creates any kind of therapy history for the player. Similarly, medications can be added very quickly, and again, we do have a mobile app that you can download and use on the go, which is a great tool, and this can be done very quickly for all our inputs that I've shown you. However, the medications work particularly well. And again, it might simply be that we want to search our list for a specific drug that we use and put some more detail as required. And we can save that there. We also have the ability, you can add a document now, you can add a photograph from your mobile device as well. If you, for example, are in a foreign country and do have new brands of medication and want to associate the box of the drug to what was given out, you can keep that there, for example, and that will all be recorded for the player as we go. If we do come back to Jonathan for our next example, what we want to talk about, so that's a kind of nice idea of what you might regularly be faced with on day-to-day use on training days for the World Cup or any camps that you are subsequently on. And for our next example, if you need to share any kind of medical information, perhaps with we'll go through a couple of examples, but if a player were to return to their club at the end of training or early for any injury reasons, we have a reporting function that we can create custom PDF reports for the player. So again, we come into the section here for the player, and we can create a specific PDF report that I'll show you. What we can do in here is be really specific on what we want to show. So you'll see that the ticked boxes are what is included currently. But if we want to just show very specific sections and we don't want to show it all, and we just want to show perhaps injuries, illness and medications, we can select that. That's what we want to pull out of the system. We can then select our timescale. We can do a custom timescale if required. We can download the full date range if required as well, whatever you need. And we can either download the report ourselves, but what you can do is if we're sharing this with a club's medical team, is we can send the report directly from within the system. Now, as that loads, I can show you what that PDF report looks like. So you will create the report once you've selected what you want to include. You'll have the title page that has the athlete details that we covered at the start. And we can see here what is included as a title page. And then the injuries that are associated with the player in that time period, if appropriate, will be displayed in here. And again, anything that you include within that selection process, you can then see quickly the PDF that's reported, a professional document to share medical records as required. But as I say, if you want to send this from directly and securely within the system, we simply add in the name of who this needs to be shared with, the email of who this is going to. It automatically sets a very secure password that you can copy to the clipboard and then send on in a different medium to the recipient. Similarly, you can set your own password if required. If you have a standardized way of doing this, and then again share this with whoever the report is going to. And then we can quickly view a preview of the report that we're sharing just to make sure that you're happy with it. And you can confirm and send safely and securely from within the system for the player. We will have a new update very soon about uploading numerous players to one report, to one send request as well. That will be coming very, very shortly. So that is an example for if we want to share an individual's player medical records with another medical team. If, for example, we wish to share the global injury records for the squad that may need to go to FIFA, for example, at the end of the tournament, then this can be done also at the high level of the squad. You'll see on our tabs here, we have the export function. And what we have the ability to do is if you were coming to the end of the time in the tournament, and we need to share our injury data with FIFA. We have, as you'll see here, FIFA health surveillance specific CSV report. So we do have a report where you get everything included, and that's the ScribePro report. But if you were to select FIFA's global health surveillance, this will create the CSV specifically required by FIFA for their injury and health surveillance study. And again, we could select a specific time frame. And we can then see that athletes are included here. and we can download the report, and we can send that securely through, and FIFA will be in touch with how exactly you share that with them. But it will produce a CSV, and just to show you quickly, everything that is recorded within the system that I've shown you is included. So all the detail is recorded. You'll see here, down from the player that it was for, they'll be given the FIFA ID and the playing position. Everything that is included for that player and that injury will be stored in a CSV here that we can share with them to conduct their further analysis. So that can all be completed within the system. So that's what we wanted to show you today, a kind of getting set up on the system, getting you ready for utilising this with your squads. Some examples of what you might be faced with on a day-to-day basis, how we share information, and finally, I did touch on the mobile app. What I've showed you today is our web-based portal for using system, which you can do everything with. It's very powerful, but we do have the mobile companion app. That is a great feature to go along for on the move. It can be utilised for any Apple or Android tablet or mobile phone. You can download and log in through there as well, and you can record the information as you move, as you travel. It can be utilised offline as well. So if you do have travel after a match that you want to update your records, you can absolutely do that on the go. And many of our users and clinicians really enjoy interacting with the system in that way. Like I say, that's been everything we wanted to show you today, and would be more than happy to take any questions that might arise, or any other questions regarding the system. We're happy to chat a little bit more if required. If not, please feel free to follow up with any of Sarah, Julia, or I. We'll follow up with an email afterwards. But yes, I'll open up the space to any questions currently, if there are any.
There's also an opportunity for you to book direct meetings with us if there's something specific that you want to learn about the system, or you require our support to set you up in a particular way. Then please do get in touch with us and book a meeting. Some of the previous correspondence we've sent has a link to do that, but if you're unsure at all, please just drop us an email. We will share the recording of this webinar with you all, and through the recording, you'll be able to set up a specific translation to suit yourself. In the meantime, we'd love to support you to get your squads ready on the system. So if you are ready to do that, then also please do let us know. Are there any final questions before we finish the webinar? No? Okay. Well, thanks very much for joining us today, and we'll be in touch very soon with a link to the recording. Thanks. Bye-bye.